Hello and welcome to Letters Home, a story of a World War II B-17 pilot from Lowell, Michigan in his own words, and he just so happens to be my grandpa. I'm your host, Annie Whitlock, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, my dad, Mitch McMahon, my aunt, Lori McMahon Summerfield, and Dale Croft from the Lowell Historical Museum.
In each episode of Letters Home, we're going to dive into letters written by my dad during his time in World War II that he sent to his parents, siblings, and friends back home in Lowell, Michigan. We'll be reading his own words and giving some context as to what was happening in the world and in Lowell at the time he wrote these.
In this episode, Dad reveals how he gets fresh eggs. We read about a heavy bombing day for the Allies, and we learn Dad's toothy secret.
So in our last few episodes, we have talked about how the raids have been picking up in preparation for the D-Day invasion. Bruce has been flying fewer missions and doing more duties on the base, and he's not in the mood to write a ton of letters. And he says this in a letter from April 4th, 1944, in his own words.
April 4, 1944. Dear Mom and Dad, this seems to be one of those times since I've been away that I'm not very good at letter writing. You've probably noticed in the mail that you've received from me that it has periods when you don't get as much as other times. Although there's no reason for this, it doesn't denote that I'm busier than usual, though. I probably use that as one of my alibis when I do write. Neither does it mean that I'm not thinking as often about you during those times. I've tried to analyze it myself, and as of yet, I haven't come up with the answer. I intended writing to you last night, but right after dinner, the major came in and asked me if I wanted to go to town to a movie. The town is censored. And I said I'd like to go in and see the show that was playing, The Petrified Forest. A bit old, but one that I hadn't seen before. I thought by the time I got back here, I would write to you before I went to bed. Well, when we got back, we sat here and we chewed the fat for an hour. And by that time, I was way past my usual time for retiring, so I figured I would do it sometime today. Today I was flying check hops and transitioned with a new co-pilot, and so again, had to put it off until tonight. This all sounds like it was a task for me. That's not true. Next to receiving letters from you, my most intimate thoughts of home are when I am writing. I was out at a farm around here yesterday to get some fresh eggs. Quite by accident, I met these people and learned that they would sell me some, which happens to be a direct offense against the Crown since war has been declared. This fellow is a man of about 50, and he has a very nice farm. His wife got a great kick out of showing me some of her flowers. At this time, the daffodils are out, and she has a beautiful bed of violets. Of course, there were a lot of flowers that I didn't remember the name of. They have about 10 head of cows that they milk, and I didn't drink any. They offered me some, but we have strict orders that we are not to drink any of it unless it has about all the bugs in it that there are. I didn't tell them this, naturally, but explained my refusal by stating that we weren't allowed to because we were told there wasn't enough for the civilians, and clinching the deal by saying that I didn't care very much for milk anyway. Can you imagine the son that left you a couple years ago saying that he didn't like milk? Well, neither can I. Well, just wait till I'm with you again, and I'm just about to drink it by the quart without anything else. Though you can probably imagine me in all sorts of hair-raising places, I'll bet you never think of how I am right now, sitting here with the radio on the AF program, a nice warm room, and chewing a piece of fudge that a fellow brought in a while ago. Don't overlook these times that I'm having, and that just because I'm over here fighting that I don't have some fairly nice times too. Guess I'd better get some sleep for now, so I'll say good night and God bless, your loving son.
So was Bruce's love of milk legendarily known over here? I mean, he says, can you imagine that I would be saying I don't like milk?
He drank a lot of milk,
Yeah. Yeah, I think he drank a lot of milk.
He just seems amazed by the craziness of his own lie to the farmers, to be polite.
Yeah, we drank a lot of milk. I mean, there was milk always on the table. Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dale, what can you tell us about this movie that Bruce saw, The Petrified Forest?
The Petrified Forest is a 1936 American crime drama film based on Robert E. Sherwood's 1934 drama of the same name. In the film adaptation of the Robert E. Sherwood play, a drifter, a waitress, and a notorious gangster cross paths in a roadside diner in the remote town of Black Mesa, Arizona, at the edge of the petrified forest during the Great Depression. Alan, Leslie Howard, a down-and-out writer, goes into the diner where Gabrielle, Betty Davis, works. Gabrielle dreams of studying art, and she and Alan connect as they talked about Europe, and she tells him her ambitions. But gangster Duke Mantee, Humphrey Bogart, shows up and takes the customers hostage.
Oh.
So how do you guys think it's going to end?
Oh my.
What's the ending to this drama?
Someone's going to fall in love.
Fall in love?
I think
Yeah.
Bogart dies at the end. That's my guess.
Bogart dies at the end. Well, Alan is shot and killed by Duke Mantee. Before his death, Alan makes arrangements for Gabriella to escape her unhappy life by providing her with the means to travel to France and pursue her dreams. Alan's death is a tragic but calculated act, as he desires to take give Gabriella a chance at a better life and chooses to die on his own terms.
I had that all wrong.
Oh my gosh. He chooses to
Okay.
die on his own terms.
Okay.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, come
Guess
on.
you don't have to watch that one
I guess
now.
I was going to watch Petrified Forest. No, that's just funny. It was an older one, 1936 at this time, but he hadn't seen it, so Betty Davis will come up again here in a little bit. This also isn't the first or the last time Bruce meets up with the egg farmers, the egg dealers. I guess they don't farm eggs. I guess they do. I don't know. Anyway, a couple weeks later, on April 17th, Bruce mentioned them again in his own words.
This afternoon, I cranked up my bicycle and pedaled out to get some eggs from my farmer friend. I bought 2 dozen and sat around and talked with he and his wife. The talk ranged from Mayflowers to the progress the Russians are making. They always have lots of questions to ask about the states, but are careful in the way they frame them, as to let me know that they are well satisfied with their own lot, but would kind of like to know if all the things they hear and read about the U.S. are true. The biggest thing for them to understand is that we are such a large country. It's hard for them to believe that we can be such a manufacturing country and still be such a farming country, too. They want to know all about Detroit because Detroit, to the average limey, is some mythical place that makes cars, trucks, airplanes, etc. By just turning a crank. They readily admit that our educational system is way ahead of their own, and grant that the Yanks have certainly showed them how far behind they really are. They have nothing but admiration for the Yanks, saying that we always have a good-natured grin on our face and always more courteous than the average guy. But one fact always remains firm in their mind. We are new, and they are old, and they take great pride in their own buildings, etc. It's obvious that they live in the past so much that they have neglected to go forward. Guess I'll take off now. Good night, my dear mother and dad. Your loving son, Bruce.
Yeah, it's cute what the British thought of Detroit. I mean, they're not totally wrong. They do kind of just, at that time, cranked out a lot of stuff just by turning a crank in the assembly line.
There you go.
And just for reference, the price of eggs in Lowell in 1944 was 35 cents a dozen. Wow. I happened to come across that in the ledger as I was
Wow.
looking through things. So I don't know how much Bruce was paying the farmers for eggs, but he gets
More
good
than
ones
that, I think.
instead of the powdered ones.
Yeah.
And while we're on the topic of food, we're going to read another short letter from April 14th, 1944, in his own words.
April 14th, 1944. Dear Mom and Dad, I received your wire today acknowledging the money I sent, so now I can throw away this receipt. If you'll wire each month after you receive the check, I'll be able to keep track of it better. Your papers have probably told you of the 4,000 plane raid the other day. From this, you can get an idea of what Germany is taking these days, and it's plenty. Our Air Force was really increased by heaps in the last few months. I met a fellow from Smyrna today. His name is Gordon Inslee, and the son of Howard Inslee. And they live in Smyrna, and he knows Jerry Devine and a lot of the people around here. He knows me from baseball games at Fallisburg. He's a gunner in another squadron on the field. This is the first close to homer that I've met yet. Latest news item around the field is that they're building an ice cream bar on the base, and we're going to make their own ice cream. Boy, you don't know how swell that is. I was never much of an ice cream eater, but after not having it for a few months, we had some last fall, you get hungry for it. The limeys around here will go hog wild, and that's one American delicacy that they're crazy about. Now I'm wondering, where will they get pure cream and milk to make it with? Maybe I'll get some cows too, you think? Well, I received a box of candy from Marg the other day. She's a bit of okay, right? Well, nothing more for now, so good night and God be with you. Your loving son, Bruce.
The ice cream bar is a big hit. So, got eggs, got ice cream.
And it cracks me up that he always is checking with his mom and dad about Mom.
Yeah.
about Margaret. He
She's a
wants
bit
to-
of okay. What does that mean?
yeah.
Like, she sent him candy. Like, that's not, that's pretty good, right?
Oh, okay.
Kind of like that, right? That's how she's a bit of
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
she's not
I
a
just
bad
never
one.
heard that turn of phrase. But
Yeah,
okay.
right, right.
There's a lot of
We've
turn
only
of
heard a
phrase
bit of
when-
honey, right? But that's, there we go.
I think he's more, but he said it's the checking. He's sort of like,
Checking to make
you
sure.
know,
Yeah,
I
that's
got a good one.
Yeah.
She's a bit of okay. She's all right.
crazy. Crazy.
She sent me some candy. Anyway, now it's time to get into our segment where we talk about what was going on in the world and in Lowell in April 1944. And we're going to read a letter from April 3rd that gets into a little bit of what was going on over there in Europe in his own words.
April 3rd, 1944. Dear Mom and Dad, starting the 1st of April, they have double war time. That means that the clocks are set another hour ahead. It's now 9 o'clock and it's still bright as day. I've heard some of the people kick about it, but it doesn't seem to make any difference in my day. Jim sent me membership to the St. Jude Guild. Good old Jim would think of something like that. I just finished a letter to him and tried to tell him how much I appreciated his thinking of me. By the papers, you can see that as far as big grades go, it has been quite a bit lately. There was that case of the B-24 bombing a Swiss town. That was a mighty unfortunate accident. Although the Swiss will shoot at you, or fighters come up and escort you down to land, they've been treating all the American flyers very well that have been interred there. Hope that an incident isn't created by this. I'm also more than happy about the fact that there weren't any forts in on that deal, but of course the libs don't compare to the forts. Just ask the pilots of each. Sounds like I'm just a wee bit biased, doesn't it? Just now, Betty Davis is on the American Forces Network and is acting as an MC for the mail call program. She just finished singing They're Either Too Young or Too Old. Certainly no voice, but she is fun to listen to. These programs that I mention quite often are ones that you'll never hear. In the case of Mail Call, it is a show of stars that the fighting men have requested. Some have asked to hear Veronica Lake fry an egg and all sorts of screwy things. But no matter how absurd the request is, they faithfully reproduce it. It makes for a lot of fun. A bunch of GIs can sure think up some queer ideas. Besides all this sort of thing, we also hear the best of the networks. But I've told you this before. And now that program is over and the news from the States comes on, mostly on Washington News and 4FM.
So this Swiss incident that he's talking about is interesting. As we know, Switzerland is, famously neutral all the time, right? They were neutral in World War II, but they are located right in the thick of things. So both the Axis and the Allies would accidentally drop bombs on Switzerland every now and then. And so what Bruce was talking about was when the B-24 liberators accidentally mistook a city in Switzerland for a German city, and they dropped their bombs, and they killed a lot of civilians. So the U.S., had to defend ourselves to Switzerland, apologize, and pay them $4 million. Sure. So that's what happens. You're neutral. That's why he's saying, I hope this isn't like an incident. Like, I hope we're not going to start a war with them over this.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I know. It's quite interesting. But I'm fascinated by Betty Davis singing and Veronica Lake cracking an egg. What is this mail call show, Dale? What can you tell us about this very bizarre-looking thing?
TikTok of the 19th.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, as Bruce mentions, there was a lot of wild requests, and I'll share some here in a few minutes.
Oh, my gosh.
During World War II, the Armed Forces Radio Service, AFRS, was a new division of the War Department, was formed to bring entertainment, information, and education to military personnel over the airwaves. Mail Call was an American radio program that entertained American soldiers from 1942 until 1945. During World War II, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas A.H. Lewis, commander of the Armed Forces Radio Service, wrote in 1944, "The initial production of the Armed Forces Radio Service was Mail Call, a morale-building half-hour which brought famed performers to the microphone to sing and gag in the best American manner. The program was a love letter to the troops aimed to lift the spirits of soldiers, connecting them with home and providing a sense of normalcy in a difficult time. The first weekly half-hour show was broadcast on March 1st, 1942. The AFRS featured popular entertainers like Bob Hope, Bing Crosby, Judy Garland, and Diana Shores, who performed musical numbers and comedy skits to boost morale. The show also featured, which I liked the best, was the command performance, where soldiers could make requests to hear their favorite stars perform to do some special things.
So weird.
Radio producer Lewis Cowan conceived of the show's format, considering that a large number of Americans in uniform would appreciate giving commands instead of receiving orders.
Oh, okay.
The requests were often musical ones, such as Judy Garland singing Over the Rainbow, but sometimes they were very creative requests. For example, Bing Crosby mixing a bourbon and soda for Bob Hope. Ann Miller tap dancing in combat boots.
Oh.
A
we
slot
have
machine hitting the jackpot. Foghorns on the San Francisco Bay. Actress Carol Landis was asked to sigh into the microphone. In 1943 broadcast, which was filmed, Lana Turner complied with a request by frying a steak on stage. The steak was presented on stage by armed guards to make the point that this was precious rationed beef. Some requests were intensely personal, including one from a soldier who wanted to hear the bark of his dog back home.
Oh my goodness.
Command Performance used traveling audio engineers to make listeners' dreams come true. The A-list performers were all volunteers and pulled out all stops to give the men in uniform the best show they could. After the first 40 broadcasts, the War Department authorized an addition of command performance to be broadcast domestically. This was the first time and only time that the public could hear these.
Oh.
So they were never. So on Christmas Eve in 1942, they did a command performance, forged a link between the servicemen abroad and the folks on the home front. It was the only time.
So one time only they did it
Yeah.
for the U.S. people back home.
Command performance was considered the best program that the American public never heard. After
what he just said.
415 shows, command performance was taken off the air in December 1949.
Until
Wow.
49.
Wow.
That command performance, when I researched this, I thought that was great, but there was a lot of wild requests. So.
Oh, we got to archive. I gotta look at that. Some
That's
of
So-
that.
so funny.
Yeah.
It's got to be archived somewhere.
And I never realized that it was never heard by the public, except for Christmas Eve in 1942.
Well, yeah, that's
Crazy.
so Bruce wasn't
So-
wrong. So some of the best programs
Yeah.
are ones you're not ever going to hear.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Sighing into the microphone, that's so strange. That's so weird. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, it's now time for our segment where we reveal information we know about Bruce's flight missions. So for this information, we have to consult flight records and mission diaries from the historical website of the 306 Bomb Group and all of its squadrons. Before we get into his mission, we're going to read a part of a longer letter he wrote on April 10th, 1944.
Monday, April 10th, 1944. Dear Mom and Dad, I received your March 29 letter today, Mom. You were sitting on the Davenport in front of a fire and the wind was howling outside. Typical March weather. As I write this, my windows are open and a slight breeze is gently moving the blackout curtains. It's 9, but it's bright outside. Seems more like 4 in the afternoon. Speaking of the magnitude of this war and my part in it, you're darned right I'm thrilled in being part of it. I wouldn't change things for all the money in the world. I see so many sights that would give you a thrill, and how many times I've wished Mom or Dad were right there beside me to thrill with me. A convoy that storms into one of these big harbors over here, hundreds and hundreds of boats streaming endlessly into port, or as we fly over this island to see the huge store of tanks, guns, airplanes, gliders, and what have you, or hundreds upon hundreds of B-4 engine ships winging their way into some enemy city. What a horrifying spectacle it must be for those people in the cities we pass over, with the sky black with the USAF, and knowing that whatever target may be, no person on earth can stop us from blowing it to kingdom come. They fear the fortress because of the reputation that with uncanny accuracy, they drop their bombs smack on the target, regardless of the flak, fighters, or smoke screens. What pitiful measures their attempts at smoke screening a town or targets are. Perhaps they light the pots on the windward side of the city, and the fickle winds will shift, exposing the city. The Germans rarely call our raids terror raids because that means just tossing our loads in the heart of a city. No, they say that we can see how we could. They say they can see how we could hit a city or even a large factory, but to pick one building and bomb it out of the existence throws the fear into them. No matter how small or how well concealed, we hit our target, our specific target, and sometimes never scatter one bomb out of the area. Next time you read of the RAF dropping more tons than we do, bear this in mind. They bomb at night, and their bomb sites don't compare to ours. However, their Pathfinder work is good, and they do a great job. It's just that the 8th is a specialist in high-altitude bombing.
Wow.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be good to read about Bruce's patriotism during this time, right? Like before we kind of get into his missions, he's really happy to be a part of this whole thing. And everything is getting more intense with the invasion coming up. For example, the mission that we're going to read about here in a minute happened on April 18th, which was the largest bombing campaign of German targets in the war up to this point. So it's the most planes, bombs, whatever it is on a single day. And Bruce was part of that, of course. So this is from the Combat Diary.
Orienburg, Captain J. Bruce McMahon leading, with Captain Russell Lund, Lieutenants Paul F. Paulson, Robert Erler, John Coughlin, John W. Curtis, and Dewey O. Jones made up the lead squadron of the 306th Group, which flew in low position, 40th CBW. 5 wings were assigned to take out the AD north of Berlin, and as this wing was last on the target, bombing was hindered by cloud cover over the target. Good visibility had persisted until reaching the target area. It's believed that the contrails from previous wings caused this concentration. No EA were encountered, and flak was meager to moderate. Fighter support was generally good.
Yeah, there were so many planes that the contrails of the other planes were
Getting
covering up
Oh
the
my gosh,
site of
that's
the bombs.
crazy.
Yeah. Yep, the biggest day of bombing into the war up to that point. All right, well, let's finish this letter, the one that we started this segment with, which has a little bit more information in it, in his own words.
Every time I start to write to you, I get all wound up on my work. At least it shows I'm interested in it. I received a letter from Marg when she was in Canada, and I believe it was vacation that made it possible for her to visit her folks. There are a lot of things I don't understand about this Navy commissions business. From some of the fellows I see get through, I'm convinced that it's all pull and no qualifications. I know that the Army doesn't have near as bad a reputation as the Navy along these lines. I've heard from some of the fellows that I've met in here that they knew lots of smelly cases, besides that actor Tony Martin deal that were never caught. It was costing Tony Martin a new automobile, as I remember, wasn't it? Personally, I'd rather see Raj in the Army, except that he should be as an officer. However, we just received new crew some days ago, and the co-pilot is some guy. He has his doctorate degree in entomology, bugs, insects, etc., and was an associate professor on Stanford's staff. He's a brilliant fellow, only 26 years old, and when I asked him how come he's joining the cadets, he said, "I want to fly, Mac. If I couldn't have made the cadets, I'd have been a gunner." So I guess some really smart men think this Army flying is okay. We also have 2 lawyers in our squadron. One is a second lieutenant navigator, and the other is a staff sergeant waist gunner. I better write a few words to Sis now. God bless you, your loving son, Bruce. P.S. Frank Sinatra is singing now, with the women screaming in the background. What women coming to back in the States? Aside from jealousy, the fellows over here get pretty disgusted listening to his programs, as I imagine they do back home, but try and tell a Limey that.
I had to put this last bit about Frank Sinatra in here. Jealous of old Blue Eyes over there.
Sure.
I think it's kind of funny. But the end of this letter also reveals that Roger, Bruce's brother, is also joining the Army. And the Ledger reported that Roger was drafted on April 6, 1944. He was having to report to Draft Board 1 in Detroit. Yep. I was like, I really want to read some of Roger's letters. And then I remembered that we have some from Gail. So Roger was Gail's dad, and she had brought letters of his. So we will read those when we kind of come to them chronologically in the story. But yeah, Bruce and Roger do meet up at some point in their respective services. But yeah, and I think he's sort of making a point that people were getting drafted. Doesn't matter. You could be professors, be lawyers. They're all everybody's joining the war effort.
People are also getting out of the service by.
Yeah, he talked a lot about that too, right? He's paid. Clearly, I should have researched who this Tony Martin is. Sounds like maybe he paid somebody to, or worked it out, or he didn't have to go, or something,
or got just gossip. We don't.
Or got a prime promotion. Who knows? Who knows? Well, our final segment today is a letter from Bruce that gives another update on one of his ongoing projects. So this letter is from April 20th, 1944, in his own words.
Dear Mother and Dad, this is to be a secret. So if You tell the rest. Tell them to keep it under their hats. Okay. I'm quite vain, but actually being away from home, I can return and no one will know the difference if the family doesn't tell it. Just 3 hours ago, the Novocaine has worked out, but they don't bother me. I parted company with my upper teeth. The job was done by the dentist on the base, and he did a good job. Smoothed the bone off and sewed it up. In about 3 weeks, I'll get my impression taken, and a couple of weeks after that, I'll be practicing on steak. Won't we have fun comparing plates when I get home? Again. Weather is now very much like spring and doesn't seem good. It makes you feel like going out and laying under a tree. Incidentally, I'll be grounded for a week with these teeth, so maybe I'll get a chance to sit under a tree at that. Another thing, my teeth haven't been bothering me before this. I just decided that the first opportunity I got to get them out, I would. That time came now, so that's the reason they're resting now peacefully on the dentist shelf. I'm sorry the page is so dirty, Dad, but the second batch of maple syrup just arrived via orderly, and opening it, this paper fell on the floor. You don't know how swell it is to have all that candy and sugar. Thanks, Bern and Helen and Sis and Barney twice for wrapping them. Gosh, Helen's divinity is super. I'll have to lay off these teeth. I'll have to lay off until these teeth quit bleeding. Incidentally, it all arrived in an A1 shape. Sis's maple divinity is delicious, as is all the candy. Thank them for me very much. By my yank, I see that they've temporarily suspended induction over all of the 26 years. Gee, I hope Raj is not one that got in before that rule. Be sure to let me know so I can breathe easier. Not that I worry about his leaving, but it is too tough for a fellow with 3 kids and a swell wife. Now, if Raj goes in, I won't worry 2 seconds because he's a guy who can take care of himself both mentally and physically. Today I'm going to send my request to the Secretary of State, Lansing, for the absentee ballot. I've looked up the procedure and I'm proud of the fact that Michigan is one of the 11 that it's not difficult to vote in from over here. Well, I better close and be sure to tell Sis, Bern, Raj, and that my toothy secret is to be kept. Boy, will I knock your eyes out with my glistening ivory. So long now. God bless you. Your loving son, Bruce.
Well, word must not have gotten to Bruce yet that Roger did not escape the new draft rules.
Yeah.
He was drafted. But no wonder he needs all his teeth out with how much candy he eats. He's got maple sugar, maple sugar divinity, maple divinity.
Maple divinity was.
That's a new
I've
one.
never seen that. No.
Mix the two together, perhaps.
Yeah, I
Maybe
guess.
that would make the divinity.
And the
taste-
candy stores in Lowell that he walked by all the time.
Yeah, all the fudge he's always eating at the.
Well, I've got a question here about why does he say thanks, Bern, Helen, Sis, and Barney twice for wrapping them?
Oh, wait a second.
Thanks, Bern and Helen and Sis and Barney twice for wrapping them. Gosh, Helen's divinity is super. So then I'm like,
Barney
maybe-
twice for wrapping them.
okay, that doesn't make any sense to me if we think Bern is
Yeah.
Barney.
Then maybe he's saying, okay, thanks, Bern, Helen, and Sis, and then Bern again twice for wrapping them. But then he calls him Barney the second time.
Maybe. I thought about that too, but I thought, well, it's worth mentioning because, again, I don't know that the mystery is completely
Oh,
solved.
I know. That throws a little doubt into it.
It does. Okay.
But you know,
Interesting.
that's good that we have all these mysteries that we have looked forward to. Again, like the box of letters. Knowing,
Yeah.
I mean, we've thought for years that Dad did that, and
Yeah.
knowing, and it makes more sense that Bern would have made it,
Yeah.
and that they would have kept the letters in that box as they came from Dad. It makes total sense.
And I want to know who else has false teeth because he's saying we'll compare our plates when I get home.
I'm gonna guess. I was gonna guess
Lada?
Frank. Well, I was gonna
Frank?
guess Frank, but I don't know.
I don't
We'll
know
have to see.
either. Somebody else has some false teeth. I wonder when he told Marg that he was getting his front teeth out. I wonder if he kept the toothy secret from her for a while before he let her in on it, or what. Who knows?
That's interesting. Interesting.
Well, we had to get an update on the teeth situation.
Yeah.
And we'll get more because this
Yep.
is just getting the front teeth out. He hasn't got his new ones in. So there'll be more to come on the teeth front.
And once again, did we talk with Susan about it? Like about the teeth coming out? Did we mention this before in the podcast or no?
We did, but we mentioned it with Susan's daughter Amy and her son Jack when he was they
there
were
we go.
guests on the podcast.
Okay,
And
that's what
they
Susan
talked-
had said.
Yes,
Okay,
that
there
he
we
kept
go.
losing his teeth in the mask or something, and that's why he wanted to get him
And
out.
he pulled him out. Yeah,
or he kept
and he pulled him out himself. Oh,
he doesn't
whatever.
mention that, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
No, that's true.
We'll see. Yeah. Well, thank you all for listening to Letters Home as we debate about front teeth and when we lost his front teeth.
Maple divinity.
Yep. Well, anyway, we hope you continue to listen as we go through Bruce's story. You can listen to Letters Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Lowell Historical Museum website and YouTube channel. New episodes drop every Thursday. The Lowell Historical Museum has digitized versions of Bruce's letters so you can read them in full, along with primary sources for most of the people, places, and events we've talked about here today, plus more. You can also follow the Lowell Historical Museum on Facebook and the Letters Home podcast on Instagram at Letters Home Lowell. Thank you to Roger McNaughton for our podcast music and to Lowell Radio for letting us record in their studio at Lowell High School every week. Stream it at lowellradio.org. See you next time.